When Addiesdive contacted me about reviewing their AD2516, I didn't even pretend to be excited. It looked fine, neat and compact, but a bit too polite for what I usually go for. I gave it the classic review as, yeah sure, another budget chronograph. But Addiesdive has a track record of humiliating cynics like me. They build watches that feel far better than their price tag suggests. So I was always going to give it a fair shake, and, of course, I was right to do that. Because the AD2516 is a lot more impressive in the metal than its press shots ever let on, or the price for that matter, at only around £60. The moral of the story? If you want advice on watches, probably best not to ask me. Want a shot at nabbing this watch? Then please consider joining my members area. I run regular giveaways and the small membership fee just covers the shipping to the winners. Or, if you'd rather try your luck for free, there's my 7,500 subscriber giveaway linked in the description. And if you like what I'm doing, then it'd really help me out if you could give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to earn some brownie points, give that hype button a smash. Thanks. Now, let's get on with the review. We're looking at a 38mm stainless steel case, 46mm lug to lug and 12.8mm thick. All very sensible because apparently it's 1963 again and nobody sent the memo. It weighs around 77 grams, has 100 metres of water resistance and runs the Seiko VK64 mecha-quartz movement. You get domed K1 mineral crystal with blue AR coating, a 20mm lug width and finishing that's far more competent than it has any right to be from a brand with dive in its name but a chronograph in the box. The period styling is done with restraint, enough detail to sell the idea without tipping into costume. There's even a little beveled ring beneath the bezel, a minor flourish that makes the front of the watch feel more deliberate than decorative. In the photos the case looks painfully plain, but it isn't. The side profile has proper layering, brushing, polishing and gentle curves that make it feel designed rather than assembled from leftovers. It's a case you appreciate once it's in hand, when you realise how neatly the surfaces interact instead of just existing next to each other. The colour palette was another pleasant ambush. The blue isn't flat at all, it's deeper and moodier, with a faint fumé that gives the dial shape without shouting about it. The gilt accents add a quiet warmth, enough vintage charm to feel nostalgic, but clean enough not to look like it's role-playing as a barn find. The only visual miss? The lack of a running second subdial. When the chronograph isn't ticking away, the whole thing feels oddly still, like it's holding its breath until you press something. The case finishing is where the AD2516 really shows off. The polished top case gives that vintage chronograph look. Enough shine to set it apart, but not so much it starts pretending to be expensive. The brushing is clean and directional, the transitions are neat, and the overall execution is much sharper than you'd expect from a brand best known for dive watches that don't dive. The side profile is better still. Those lugs don't just curve, they swoop down into these almost teardrop ends, giving the case shape and movement, and that sense of effort that you don't normally associate with watches under £100. The crown's signed, which sounds good until you see they've used that bloody dive gear logo, which is completely irrelevant on a chronograph. But I've banged on about Addiesdive's logos plenty of times before. I've even offered alternatives, so now it's down to them if they want to listen or not. Still, dodgy logo aside, it does work. It's thin, but right for the case, with enough knurling to grab easily and a push-pull action that's perfectly no fuss. It's functional, not fussy. But the pushers are tiny bits of theatre. They've got this subtle jet engine motive that's so unnecessary, it's brilliant. It's a small detail, but it suggests the bloke with imagination was invited into the design meeting for at least 5 minutes. And the pushers themselves feel exactly as a VK64 should. Crisp, tactile, and with a solid snap that'll shut up the snobs with their usual excuses as to why quartz sucks. The dial is what really sells it though. In the photos it looked fine, blue, shiny, but nothing new. But in person it's deeper, darker and far more deliberate. The brushing runs straight from top to bottom, fading into a soft fume that darkens towards the edge. It gives the dial real depth, like it's been aged by time, rather than an over-enthusiastic Photoshop intern. Two large gold subdials sit across the middle, a 60-minute counter at 9 and a 24-hour dial at 3. Both catch the light in a way that makes the rest of the dial look almost black by contrast. The outer white minute track pops crisply against the gradient edge, adding just enough structure to stop it drifting into jewellery. The printed Arabic numerals and gilt sword hands keep it grounded. They're sharp, legible and proportioned correctly, which sounds obvious, but plenty of budget chronographs still manage to fail that part. The stick seconds hand for the chronograph sits neatly at the centre, but it highlights what's missing, a running seconds hand. At first it felt odd. A dial this composed almost begs for motion, but after a while it makes some sort of sense. Chronographs don't really need a running seconds hand, and without one, there's nothing making its quartz guts stand out like a sore thumb. It just sits there quietly, pretending to be mechanical and doing a convincing job of it. The 24-hour subdial is usually the first thing I bin, but here it kind of fits. Historically, it helped pilots tell night from day while they're up in the air for hours on end. Even if today it's just there to remind you that you set your watch to 8 PM instead of 8 AM and can't be bothered to fix it. The Lumed deserves a mention too because it's actually good. See-through green, evenly applied and surprisingly bright for something printed. It doesn't flare up and die immediately, and it glows steadily like a well-mannered torch. There's enough on the hands and markers to keep it balanced, and it fits the whole vintage aesthetic without feeling forced. The dial also comes in green, paired with silver accents and white markers and BGW9 lume for a more modern twist. It looks great, but I can't help just wishing they'd done the same vintage treatment there. The blue just feels more complete, more cohesive, like the idea landed properly. Over the top sits a K1 mineral crystal, and honestly, scratch resistance aside, it sort of suits it. Sapphire would have been the predictable choice, but mineral gives it character. It refracts the light softly around the edges, distorting the minute track just enough to feel nostalgic, and the blue anti-reflective coating keeps things clean while looking straight on. It's one of those rare times where only mineral grass doesn't sound like a compromise. Altogether, the dial and movement feel in sync. The VK64's smooth sweep, the stillness when it's idle, and the restrained sparkle of gold against the blue. It's all executed with a bit of confidence, a design that doesn't need to shout because it already knows it looks good. And onto the strap. And this, I'll admit, I didn't expect. The blue natural rubber strap that came on this is actually brilliant. Soft, flexible and free from the usual rubber strap sins, no squeak, no cheap shine, no weird vanilla scent trying to hide factory fumes. It integrates nicely with the case, flows naturally over the wrist and stays put without cutting off circulation. It's easily one of the better looking stock straps at this price range, and the fact that it's colour matched to the dial gives the watch a cohesion you don't usually see at this level. Yes, it's not FKM rubber, but honestly, out of the pack, FKM has always felt too stiff for me, and with zero patience for breaking it in, it's an option I've always swerved. But this is comfortable, looks durable enough, and good enough that you won't instantly bin it for a NATO. Though, with 20mm lugs, you'll have no shortage of aftermarket options. On the wrist, the AD2516 just works. It's comfortable, discreet, and should look good in almost any situation. I wore it for several days before the review and caught myself admiring it more than I expected. The case finishing and the dial really do punch above their price, and more importantly, it doesn't feel cheap. You get balanced proportions, reliable tech, and a genuinely enjoyable wearing experience. And the blue dial version in particular is a bit of magic. That flash of gold against the gradient dial catches the light beautifully and tricks your brain into thinking you've overspent. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and the styling won't be for everyone. The snobs will scoff at the quartz movement, and the mineral crystal will be a straight no for some. But if we're scoring on honesty, wearability and sheer likeability, for me, the AD2516 passes with flying colours. Thanks for sticking around with me on this one. It's been a rough week and I'm glad to have this one out. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.